Hello, team. This is John Tarleton. I wanted to take some time to go over the steps in doing our monthly financial reports for our associations. I know I've gone over this with you in your training, but I wanted to do a video so you'll have your notes and you'll have the video and you can compare them together. Should be able to get you through these things pretty quickly. Our financial reports should not take that long to do. We've done this on purpose so that you can crank them out very quickly. Please remember, reports are due 48 hours after you get them from the accounting department. And so we need to crank these things out pretty quickly. For today, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to work on the RROC file. That is for the ROC HOA right here. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to get, this is under Financial Delivery Standard Package, Manager Review. There's the name of the association. I'm going to hit this drop down menu, which will give me the list of all the actions that have happened so far. And then we're going to execute this paperclip. And when it opens the paperclip, you'll have this file. I enlarge this a little bit, and then I go ahead and scroll on down to the balance sheet. If you'll remember in your training, this is where we said we start with the work is we start with the balance sheet. So I'm going to move that out of the way for just a moment so I can review that while I'm filling out the form. And I'm going to open another tab. So I'm duplicating this tab, and I'm going to get ready to do the paperwork for the actual report by hovering over the management term here. Go to financial. Do not click on the section, just click on financial overview, and it opens up this page. Simply change the name of the association. So pick the one you want to go to. In this case, we're doing RROC. So I select that. And then you want to verify this date period. We are working on the December financial report. So I want to change that, make sure it's on the right one. If you don't do that, you could end up having some errors and some problems. So remember, we've got our accounting notes here, we got our manager's notes here, and this is where that template comes into play that we've given send out to everyone on every computer. Looks like this. These are the basics for the accounting. This is the basics for the manager's blurb, if you will. So we're just going to simply copy this and paste it into the accounting section. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and get the manager's notes, copy that one as well. I'm doing this off of another screen, obviously. And I'm going to paste it here. So then, and I just leave this open while I'm doing reports. That way I can go back and copy and paste as many times as I need to. So here we look at this. We've got the end. So we just start filling out the form. The basics of the report are that at the end of December, the HOA had, and we want to look and see how much cash they had. And I'm looking here, and having a calculator close by is never a bad thing. And we had a total of, in this one, we had $3,154.67 in their operating account, 45,337.46 in their savings account, which is also sometimes referred to as the reserves. And you can see those again on the balance sheet, these two line items right here. So we just add those two numbers together. And I enter it right here in this blank. So we look at how much cash they had, which is 48,492.13. This gives the board an idea of how much cash on hand that they actually have. We want to look at the amount of the invoices to be paid. And this is under the liability section on that balance sheet. And it says accounts payable. It's cost code number 2040. In this case, it's $2,194.82. If they ask what that comprised of, that's dues, that's late fees, that's collection fees, attorney's fees, all of the fees that would be on someone's account that are not paid constitute, excuse me, that's bills that are to be paid. I messed that up. That's the bills that came in usually at the end of the month. What I was thinking about is the accounts receivable, which is considered an asset. And so it shows up on the asset side of the balance sheet, which will be right here under accounts receivable, and it's $6,211.37. That is all of the stuff that I just was mentioning. Anything that's on an owner's account that hasn't been paid for shows up as the accounts receivable. $6,211.37. So we just fill it in. It does not include a good credits for the delinquents. Overall, we show a year-to-date net income of, and you look at this on the equity section of the report, and here it says $3,116.82, but you notice it's in parentheses. The parentheses means that it's a net loss for this association. So they've actually lost money year to date. Part of that is because of some bad debt and some things that they were doing. It's not enough to really give an explanation on, but we can if we want to, and I'll show you how in just a moment. So we're going to fill in this of $3,116.82. But I've got to come over here and make sure that they know it is a net income loss of that amount of money. You could say net income with a negative number here, but it's confusing to most people. So you just say that it's a loss of that much money. They kind of get their heads around that a little bit. Here is where that explanation comes into play. If you want to tell them why they made the loss, you can just run down to your uh, profit and loss statement and see what categories got blown. And we're just going to kind of look at this and see where did that happen. And I have a feeling, no, I thought it was in reserves, but apparently it's not. In this case, it was landscaping. We did a bunch of landscape work um, around the front of that community, trying to clean it up because we had some complaints. Even though that's not our property, which is a whole different story, but it was not budgeted, so that's where we definitely blew that money. So we can move this back out of the way. Again, if you're working on two screens, you don't move this back and forth. I'm just doing it as I'm trying to explain this to you guys, so we can work through some of this. Um, so under explanation needed, we'll simply say this is due to the association doing additional work at the community. And of course, do your spell check as you go. Great thing about the red squiggle line, you just hit it and move on. So that will take care of the accounting deal. The management blurb is over here. We've worked on collections there. They are coming down. We just put in here what we're trying to work on to get So just want to add in here some things that are on here. I didn't want to say this as I was typing it because I tend to type slower when I'm talking. But in this case, we just put it on here. We need to give it the declarant to explain their position since all the lots have been sold. The annual taxes and the annual audit for 2024 have been ordered. The holiday decoration event did not, for this last year, did not go over as well as expected. So this needs to be discussed for next year. because they may not want to do it. So we put that in there so that they can start reading the report and then have a thought about it. So after that's done, we this is not something you're going to find in the reports. These are things that you've been doing on the property. You need to let them know what you've been doing so that they have an idea of what's happening on the property. So the next thing we're going to look at is the variance report. And the variance report is based off of the income statement, which is what I'm looking at right here. It says statement of revenues and expenses, and we're going to be looking at the year-to-date number. It's always the year-to-date numbers. The monthly will give you something if it's a change from the last month. You can look at it and go, oh, we did that thing. But you don't necessarily want to have a month by month explanation. You want to do an annual explanation of what the variances are. And again, if you'll remember, we try to do our variances on roughly 10% of the budget. If it's 10% over, 10% under, we need to give an explanation. So the first thing up the bat, we had 29,000, or excuse me, $22,000 in income. We're $3 off. That obviously does not need a variance explanation. We had $4,700 come in for working capital contributions. And this simply just to say that the lots, and we just explain it, the lots that were sold caused this fee. And that money goes into the savings account for the association. Interest is $10 off. That's no big deal. So we're not going to over explaining that. It is interest. It is what it is. Interest charged to homeowners. These are late fees, and I'm simply going to say that. This So just sometimes you feel like you're stating the obvious, but you do sometimes have to state the obvious. We're only $50 off. We're right on top of that 10%. So on the fines, so I'm going to not mark that. And then we jump down to the office supplies. That's the next item. And here you can see we've gone through the income. Now we're hitting the operating expenses. We're going to be looking at budget versus actual. Why were we so much higher on office supplies than expected? And honestly, I just believe that that was a missed budget. We also added in a couple of programs. So we're going to say that added in to a couple of online programs to better serve the community. And so that says needs to be adjusted in next year's budget. Simple enough. And so then printing and production is actually in a good place. It's not even 10%, so we're going to mark that off. We have postage and delivery is way off, and this on it is actually way under. So it's not as many demand letters this year. And the fines were lower than anticipated, which is great. This is a time when you don't want to use the grammar check because obviously demand letters, demand is the adjective, not a verb. So we keep going down. Rental storage is right where it's supposed to be. Meetings, this is $150 off. Didn't get used. And just simply say, you can simply say, not used this year. And we thought we might have to rent a facility for some of their meetings, and it didn't happen. Social, this is the prizes for the decorating contests. Okay. Then we have legal and professional. They didn't do anything, so I'm going to uncheck it. They just didn't do anything. Website, I always say that this will balance over the year because it does. This will balance over the year, but the board may want to consider not continuing the site. The Vantica portal now covers all the legal reasons for the initial website. And we'll see what they say. Vantica is spelled correctly, so I'm not going to worry about that. And we'll just skip down through that and go to the next one. Accounting fees are under, and we need to see why. Looking at the deal, it actually we're over budget. Small price increase. 2023. The commercial package. Now, the insurance is interesting because we look at this as kind of a lump sum deal. It sometimes gets paid as a package, sometimes it gets paid individually. This is actually right in line with where it needs to be. So we're going to simply do say that this category will balance over time, because the numbers that show up here are done on an accrual basis, and staff makes accrual entries for these. And so over time, they will balance as the policy goes from start to start. But unfortunately, most of the policies do not start on January 1. So this is kind of a little messy, but it's the best answer. And so I uncheck the others and just talk about the category instead of the line item. Next one is your landscape exterior. This is your contract. So we look at that contract and see what's happening with it. Again, we roll down to the electricity has nothing really happening for it. So it's $87 off. We skipped it. Landscaping is $3,600 actually to the good. And I'm going to put some of this balances 5550, because I think some of this was actually coded to 5550 instead of to the contract. And then we have common area repairs. We're over in that because we had to do some work on the front sign. So I just remind them of that. Landscaping work, cleanup as directed. And then they had lighting, which we ended up not using. So I'm just going to simply say that, not used this year. Doesn't mean it won't be used next year, just this year it didn't get used. So I put that on there. Now that you'll notice I'm out of scrolling space. So I am done with all of my variance entry points. So I'm going to simply push the update button one time only. So I push it, and then everything clears up. All the little triangles go away. And now I am done with my explanations on my report. So when I look at this report here, I've done all of this. If I wish, I can go ahead and look at some of the other things on my report, check out my collections, look at my aging report and see who's got where, what, and when. Overall, not too bad when you look at the numbers. There are a couple of bad ones, but we're working on those with the attorney. So done with that, I'm going to close this report out. I go back over to the initial tab where I have the deal set up, and this time I'm going to go to the hamburger menu, and I'm going to step this. And my choices are send it back to accounting, which I don't need to do because they got everything right. We were able to complete the report. And I'm going to go to financial delivery. There is no reason for you to ever go back. There's nothing back here that you can address or do anything with. So you step it forward to final board package. What happens is when you do this, we'll give that a chance to catch up. The system is going to take that overview report that we did and combine it with the draft, remove the page that says draft, and get everything combined together in one report. I'll show that to you shortly. It does take a minute. So we're going to come over here, hit the drill down menu again, and see where it's at. It says that it's processing. So I can come through and hit this refresh button down at the bottom of the page. Do not use the one at the top because it will send you back out to the main page. But if you hit this refresh button, it refreshes this page and the items that I'm looking at specifically. So you want to go ahead and refresh the page, hit the drill down again to see if it's changed, and it says this is complete. What happens when it's complete is you will also get an email saying that it's moved to the next step. Now that it's complete, there's actually a paper clip, which I'll go ahead and show you. And so this is my draft here, which we just looked at. But when I hit this down arrow, here's my final package. And you'll notice that the draft page goes away. And then all my variances are listed right here, all my explanations. And then we have the accounting notes that we put in and the manager's notes. So I'm going to close this. And now that I know that that's there, I'm going to go ahead and step this to the next step, which is post board financials. But before I approve this, I have to attach I have to use the existing attachments because if I don't attach anything, it posts a blank page to the board financials, and that's not what we want to do. So I select that final board package that we just looked at. And when I say update, the system does three things very quickly. It goes into the thing and it posts that package to the board financials. And I'll show you that in just a moment where you can always look at that. It also goes into the report, takes out the balance sheet and a copy of the profit and loss statement, makes another file and posts it on the association's financials. Once that is done, then it closes that step, which also closes the books for the month. So to make sure that I know that this has happened right, again, I could open another tab if I wish, but I'm going to go over here because I'm going to be done anyways. I'm going to go to Association Documents. Since I'm on ROC already, I go down to the Financials Dashboard, hit the drop down, hit the one for 2024 since this is what we were doing, and here it opens up the financials that we just finished, and this is for December. So everything did what it was supposed to do. I close it there. So I mean, you don't have to verify this every time, but spot checking every now and then is not a bad idea. And you can go up to association financials, go to 2024, and then whoops, here you go. You can see here you've got the balance sheet and you got the profit and loss statement. And this is out there for any owner that wants to be able to review this. As you can tell, these files are set up for homeowner view. Okay. So that way they can go and look at them. And if they have any questions, they can see them online and it sends you a note if they have any questions or whatever. But all of the association financials should be set up for homeowner view. We used to post these on websites, and the people could then go out and look at them. But now we've got the Vantica. It's one more reason that we really don't need the homeowners' websites anymore because that information is out here. So that wraps up the financial report. All of that is done, and now I'm ready to move on to my next report. If you have any questions, please feel free to get with us. But we hope that this video has been helpful to you, and you can see where all the parts move together and how you get this all accomplished. Thanks a lot, and happy reporting.